everyone, this is my 8th video. I hope to present about class diagram through this video and also show how the answer to a given problem were obtained. So let's go to the video. The class diagram depicts a static view of an application. It represents the type of object residing in the system and the relationship between them. A class consists of its object and also it may inherit from other classes. A class diagram is used to visualize, describe, document various executable software code. It shows the attribute, classes, functions, and relationship to give an overview of the software system. It constitutes class names, attributes, and functions in a separate compartment that help in software development. Since it is a collection of classes, interfaces, association, collaboration, and constraints. It is termed as a structural diagram. The purpose of class diagram is to model the static view of an application. Class diagrams are the only diagram which can be directly mapped with object-oriented language and thus widely used at the time of construction. UML diagram like activity diagram, sequence diagram can only give the sequence flow of the application. However, class diagram is a bit different. It is the most popular UML diagram in the coder community. The purpose of class diagram can be summarized as: the main purpose of class diagram is to build a static view of an application. It is the only diagram that is widely used for construction and it can map with object-oriented language. Analysis and design of the static view of an application. Describe responsibilities of a system. Base for component and deployment diagrams. Forward and reverse engineering are some of the purpose of collaboration diagram of class diagram. So next I explain implements of class diagram. Class diagram is a static diagram and it is used to model the static view of a system. The static view describes the vocabulary of the system. Class diagram is also considered as the foundation for component and deployment diagrams. Class diagrams are not only used to visualize the static view of the system, but they are also used to construct the executable code for forward and reverse engineering of any system. Generally, UML diagrams are not directly mapped with any object-oriented programming language, but the class diagram is an exception. Class diagram clearly shows mapping with object-oriented language such as Java, C++, etc. From practical experience, class diagram is generally used for construction purpose. In a nutshell, it can be said class diagrams are used for describing the static view of the system, showing the collaboration among the elements of the static view, describing the functionalities performed by system, and last one is construction of software application used object-oriented language. So let's go to ahead. Next, basic components of the class diagram. The standard class diagram is composed of 3 sections: upper section, middle section, and bottom section. Next is member access modifiers. All classes have different access level depending on the access modifier. Here are the access level with their corresponding symbols: public, private, protected, package, derived, static. So we discuss addition class diagram components. Depending on the context, classes in class diagram can represent the main object interaction in the application or classes to be programmed. To answer the question, what is a class diagram in UML? You should first understand its basic makeup. First one is classes, a template for creating object and implementing behavior in a system. In UML, a class represents an object or set of objects that shares a common structure and behavior. They are represented by a rectangle that includes rows of class name, its attribute, and its operations. When you draw a class in a class diagram, you are only required to fill out the top row. The others are optional if you would like to provide more detail. Name, the first name row in a class shape. Attributes, the second row in a class shape. Each attribute of class is displayed on a separate line. Methods, the third row in a class shape, also known as operations. Methods are displayed in list format with each operation its own line. So next component is signals, symbols that represent on one way. Asynchronous, communication between active objects. Next is data type, classifier that defines that values. Data types can model both primitive types and enumeration. Next one is package, shapes designed to organize layered classifiers in a diagram. They are symbolized with a large tabled rectangle shape. Interfaces, a collection of operation signature and or attribute definitions that define a cohesive set of behaviors. Interfaces are similar to classes, except that the class can have an instance of each type, and an interface must have at least one class to implement it. Next one is enumeration, representations of user-defined data types. And enumeration include groups of identifiers that represent values of the enumerations. Next one is objects, instance of a class or classes. Objects can be added to a class diagram to represent either concrete or prototypal instance. Next one is artifacts, model elements that represent the concrete entities in a software system, such as documents, databases, executable files, software components, etc. Next one is interactions. The term interaction refers to a various relationship and link that can exist in class and object diagrams. Some of the most common interactions include inheritance, bidirectional associations, unidirectional association. So next we can discuss benefits of class diagram. It can represent the object model for complex systems. It reduces the maintenance time by providing an overview of how an application is structured before coding. It provides a general schematic of an application for a better understanding. It represents a detailed chart by highlighting the desired code which is to be programmed. It is helpful for the stakeholders and developers. I add student, principal, teachers, subject and class tables. I add the student table, student ID, username, password, enrollment number, gender, email, phone number, address, class ID, and also I add the student private operations, login, logout, and view report card. Next I go principal table. Principal, I add principal table private variable attribute username and password, and principals private operations, login, logout, add new teacher, modify teachers, see teacher details, add new students, modify student, promote students, add new class, and add modify class. Next I go teacher table. I add teacher table private attribute, teacher ID, username, password, confirm password, age, gender, phone number, address, email, class teacher. And also I add private operations, login, logout, enter mask, get mark details, prepare report cards. Next I go subject table. I add subject able to add attribute, subject ID, subject name, operation. I added attribute for the subject table, and also I add private operations to subject table, operation. So I go next table to class table. I add two attributes in class table, class ID and class name. This is my class diagram to I draw for a given scenario. So now I stop my video. Thank you all.